3, maybe 5 viewers.
No, it's about 20. More so that it just goes on YouTube straight up, so like we don't have to upload it, which is perfect.
Oh, nice.
But then also I can clip it for socials and stuff, which is handy. I'll just make sure we are live. Should be.
I don't know if you know, man, but we're blowing up on the top. So.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah.
Not as much as the old marmalade. It's going to be hard to top that, though, I think. All right. Yeah, we're on. Cool. All right. Chat up. And there. All right, I'm good to go. You guys good to go?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to shut this door?
Yeah, that'd be good, actually. Dossie, if you do get stuck on the screen, you notice it, just give me a kick. Because I know you hate
right.
and just...
I don't like being stuck on the screen.
Yeah, so just... I might not notice it, that's all. All right, let's get stuck in. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. With our AFL Fantasy podcast, it doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players that are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and I'm joined by my co-host Dossie. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. Very good that we've hit the upgrade on our co-host this week.
I'm about to explain that and introduce the new co-host. But yeah, Kay's lost his first match in the home league this week, so he decided to take the night off and just regroup and just rally his team and just figure a few things out. So tonight we're joined by Checkers. Say good day, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys again. It's been a long time. So
yeah, we first met at a Port Adelaide trial match, wasn't it?
It was an internal trial. I'm trying to think. It might have been Connor Rosie's second year at the club.
That's right. Dossie was claiming the Brownlow that year.
I did, yeah.
He
I think I put money on it.
It was
that day.
the Dan Houston breakout day.
Yeah, there was plenty going on.
It was a very
that's
important
for sure.
day in fantasy history that
absolutely.
day.
Absolutely. So no, it was very important. But tell us a bit about yourself, mate. So what do you do out there on the interwebs? You're quite well known these days on the TikTok, that's for sure. Do you want to talk us through that one?
A lot of 14 to 18-year-old fanboys. Yeah.
Doing what?
I've been kicking torpedoes all around Adelaide the last probably year, 12 months. 12 months now I've been kicking torpedoes around Adelaide. Lost a lot of footies. So
yeah. So how many footies do you reckon you go through a week kicking torpedoes?
In probably the worst week we've had, 20 plus.
Jeez.
But we've lost about 100, I think it was 105 we counted the other day now all up. So it just depends what the weather's like and how many days we can get out there. But who was your first ever torp and like where the idea kind of started with the video itself? We did a video, it was last Friday was the 1 year mark.
Far out.
We were at the pub, our mate bought a pub a year ago and we went in, we were like, do the right thing, go and have a feed, say hello, see the scenes. And we were just chatting. I think we bought a couple of packs of footy cards before we went in there and we were opening them up just for a bit of a laugh. And we're talking about TikTok and sort of like how it's a platform that not many people our age know.
Yeah.
So a lot of youngsters. And he's like, oh, there's a footy across the road. Like, you guys should try and get it down and kick it over the pub. You can film it and then like promote my new pub. Like, see if one of you guys can kick it over the pub and see if it's a good video. And we did it. And we put it up on TikTok, and then I think the next day we woke up, it was 100,000 plays on the video, and I was like, what the hell?
Gone from there.
So this is a TikTok page. It's just basically you and your mates just kicking torps over things.
Yeah, over buildings. not really. Most of it's not conventional things. Like goalposts, boring.
Yeah.
IKEA, great.
Giant rocking horses.
Giant rocking horses, great. Yeah.
I used to play. Do you still play footy?
Yeah, I haven't played for 2 weeks. I'd work, but D grade. Shout out to Lockleys D grade.
Do the opposition or does anyone get into you about having to kick a torp during the game?
So I can't kick a drop punt anymore. It's real bad. if I don't get the ball very often in the ruck, but if I do find the ball in my hands, it's just a chance. Kick a torp, and I'm like, can't let him down. If I kick a drop punt, I'm going to let everyone down. So spray one off the side of the boot, and
it's only torps from now.
Legitimately, and the coach just worked it out. He can't drag me now if I kick a bad torp. So.
All right. Well, enough about the TikTok page and your bloody 100,000,000 viewers on TikTok and whatever. What about AFL Fantasy? So what's your background in that?
2019. So that was the year we went to the game. Maybe no, I reckon it was the year after because had the COVID.
It was, I reckon,
COVID
the year
breakout.
after,
Yeah,
yeah.
2019, I finished 11th overall in fantasy. That was my best ranking. Don't want to talk about this year's ranking or anything, but I'm mostly like classic. I've been playing it since I was in like year 9 at school. And we used to play it at school. We played it so much in high school they banned it from our school computers. So no one was doing their work and everyone was doing fantasy research. So we got a ban.
That's so good.
I think it was a kid in a couple of years above me. He finished 3rd one year, so everyone was sort of like in the schoolyard always trying to get in his circle and ask him for advice. And it was almost like before podcast was a thing. You'd go to the school ground and you'd ask, oh mate, there's a couple of years old, like, oh, what's your tip? What's my trades like? Same sort of stuff that goes down on Twitter these days. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Classic.
They banned it though. That's brutal.
Yeah, there's the IT guys at my school weren't smart enough to do that back then. So I got
Hopefully I haven't given them an idea now.
Anyways, all right, check it. So when you're kicking big juicy torps over famous South Australian landmarks, how important is it to wear a comfy pair of jocks?
Pretty important.
Pretty important, you'd say?
There's a few vital pieces you need, like a good pair of socks, good pair of shoes, good pair of jocks.
Yeah, mainly about the jocks because did you know the kings of crotch comfort, MANSCAPED, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
You were aware of this?
The double crotch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, like, we've had the honour of testing these. Dos, have you actually picked yours up from the post
No, they're
office
still
yet?
at the post
God
office.
damn
I'm
it,
not gonna lie.
Dossie.
I need to go get them.
Get them and wear them so
I
we
think
can
they're
review
like
on
going
the
to
podcast.
send them back soon. So I better go get them.
Yeah, you better grab them. But look, you know, I've been testing these out anyway, and look, they're breathable. They're like gills for your groin. They've got the trademark dual pouch, so you know it's serious. And yeah, like checkers, I think it's time you invest in your family jewels by jumping on manscaped.com and picking up a pair of these. So yeah, 20% off and free shipping using the code keeper20 at manscaped.com. So yeah,
sounds like a good plan.
All right, yeah. You just remember that when you're kicking torps. Maybe you could kick a few torps in these jocks, really. Out in this weather. Yeah. Anyways, let's stop goofing around and let's get onto the round rewind. I'll just do a little bit of an edit here.
All right.
That was seamless. Well done, guys. All right, into it. Wasn't recording the video for like the first 5 minutes of that, but it's streamed, so I can grab it there if I need it. Stop goofing around and let's get onto the round rewind. Stop goofing around and let's get onto the round rewind. All right, into the round rewind, the segment where we review all the weekend's games. Dossie, you're up first. Sydney versus Richmond. What happened in that one?
Yeah, well, that was the big decision at the end of the game, boys, outside of the fantasy. I don't know if, Checkers, did you manage to see that one? And what did you think of the call at the end of the game with the Chad Warner booting it out of bounds, getting the 50?
I was at a gig on Friday night. I was watching up until the last 5 minutes, and then my set started. So I was devastated. I had this tiny little TV in the back corner of the room, and I was trying to watch it from the decks. But yeah, no, it was a good, great game.
Oh yeah,
great Friday night game for a change.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like I was having
finish.
a bit of a back and forth with our other co-host, so it might have got a bit heated in here tonight if he was here. That's probably why he decided not to come.
I was at a gig. I wasn't DJing like Checkers does at the Ramsgate on every Friday night, by the way. Another plug. But yeah, I was watching a band and I opened the group chat just to see this like essay argument between you two. What happened there?
We won't bring it up too much because we got a lot to get to tonight, but I think I'm just on the side of like, I don't know what, I haven't listened to anything about it this week on like podcasts or radio or anything, but I was just like, I just don't think you can change the rule based on the time of the game. I think it's just, I know it's like time wasting's the reason, but that's like when does common sense come into making a decision?
Common
for
sense
umpires
hasn't
ever?
played their part this whole season.
Yeah, it's
really,
just like, I just
umpiring.
think to the letter of the law, I would have just 50 metres 100% of the time. Plus, I had a mate that's a diehard Sydney fan, and I just wanted to break his heart. So,
like, I'm neither here nor there. Like, I've seen similar things that should have been paid time wasting, not called, and things that probably weren't. That were pretty harsh. So,
yeah.
I know the inconsistencies are the thing that's annoying more than anything. But
I definitely would have been one of the people saying robbed after the game if I was a Tigers
you were
fan.
robbed. Anyway,
let's get to fantasy. We talked about Nick Blakey. He got the status of 2G for P. Do you know what that is, Checkies, on this show?
Too good for the podcast? Is that
Perfect,
correct?
mate.
You've done your research, mate. Well done.
I've listened before. I have definitely listened before. I need to do some research from time to time.
So basically, it just means we can't talk about them because they're not really that relevant for keeper leagues because everyone already owns them that is playing a keeper league. But anyway, sadly, Braden Campbell couldn't really take advantage of that. I thought maybe he might be the one that sort of benefited from that and taken on a bit more of a distributor role. Have you been a fan of Campbell before? I know he was probably in your classic team last year.
Pre-season, I think a lot of people were looking at him, but hasn't really. Blakey really took the good role off the halfback, and Campbell hasn't been lining up just yet.
No, not at all. Still getting low time on ground, just hasn't popped. So, I'm sort of, long term you're still okay, but if you're in kind of like, if you're turning over your list and you're keeping like 12 players at the moment, that sort of thing, unless you're absolutely on rebuild mode, you're probably not looking at holding on to him at this point. I want to talk about the big name of the week now, which was Matty Roberts. So, bit of a story here. So, big fan. Kays is a big fan of Matty Roberts. He posted a lot of stuff on the Twitter sphere about how this guy's the must-have rookie of the week, I want to say, to bring in for your teams. I did that. I followed the great man's advice, brought him in. He actually had really high points per minute in this game. I don't know if you actually saw that, guys.
I saw his score.
Not fantasy points. He only scored the 6.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Points per minute, he was directing traffic out there. He was one of these guys. He was like telling people to get into the zone and stuff. I'm like, dude, go get a touch.
Don't give it to me.
Just go get a touch. Anyway, if you guys watch it, you'll see what I mean. It was like non-stop. Anyway, I think long term, I like the way he goes about it, but 6 points back. Come on. Hopefully he gets another game.
The flashback that I want to put on that one is Mitch Owens in round 1. Remember how he had very low ownership?
Yeah.
And all these people probably jump off Matt Roberts this week and write him off for the rest of the year. But geez, just watch.
Yeah.
He has got fantasy pedigree.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
don't write it off.
And it's a tough matchup for a wing. He didn't manage to play inside, which I think is his probably preferred role to play on the inside. So
he got a couple of CBAs.
They started to put him in a bit later, but they chucked him on the wing for like most of the first half. Didn't get much involved, and then I saw the second half stoppage. He tried to roll him into stoppage, but he was 50% tog or less, so it wasn't like he was actually getting an opportunity.
Yep.
It was. Yeah, what did he get in the end? 64%, but he only had 48 at half or something like that.
And let's just repeat the score again.
What's this? 6 points.
6 points. And you've got that in your classic side now for a while.
I do.
Red dots.
I do. Hopefully, like we said, back him in again. Just talking about a couple of other players.
Just on that, Dylan Stevens went bunter in the VFL
that's
as well.
The problem.
So,
Yeah, that's the problem. But I think Bud's going to miss surely. So
yeah, true. There might be
a couple of spots.
What they're playing with enough for.
Pete Laddams, 81 points. He was really influential though in the game, and I think you can tell by some of these Supercoach scores are probably more indicative. Like he had 113 Supercoach. His game in the late games phases was really impressive, and I think just if you're keeping long term, this guy's going to be so good when Hickey and that's out of the picture. So good signs long term, but when Hickey's back in, we've seen they're both not fieldable. So anyway, J-Mac, we talked about him last week as well. Justin Mcinerney. The only interesting thing, so he didn't score great. He got a 68, but he actually got defensive status in AFL fantasy format this week.
Yeah, that's weird because he got an ultimate footy from the start of the year.
So he was mid only. So I mean, he just becomes
he's been playing
slightly
bolt
more
wing though.
Yeah, well, apparently not. Apparently, been getting enough defensive rotations, which I thought was surprising. And also for ultimate footy, if he's going to keep that status, it makes him. I said he was not fieldable, not ownable as a mid, but
I'm skeptical still.
Yeah, interesting.
I reckon that's a gut feel call more than data backed.
And anyway. One more, Paddy Mccarten. We've got him in our classic teams. He only scored a 50. I'll be fielding him, or at least trying to get him on the field this week against Melbourne. I think he's going to lap it up back there in the back 50. But Checkers, do you reckon long term? It's only his first year playing as a defender. Do you reckon he'll ever have relevance in a keeper league? Can he go at a 75?
Yeah, I don't know. He's still a key position player. He'd have to take 15 grabs a week, and we haven't seen anyone do that for a couple of years. Alex Rance, maybe back in the day,
Hurley
as a key
or something.
defender, but that sort of art form's dying off, isn't it?
Definitely.
I don't know. He just loves to get on the back of a plus.
You'd always have one or two key defenders that were good value in fantasy. They'd average 80, just that low value. I guess Luke Ryan, could you count him as a key? I know he's not great this year.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy though, because you've got Paddy, he's got his brother there, Tom doing the defensive work and Rampy doing the defensive work. He's kind of that third, he does, like I said, he doesn't mind a little getting involved in some switch play and stuff like that. So I don't know, I think he's had a couple of nice scores, and it's only his first year playing as a defender. So I don't know. See some scope for him being relevant for keepers for a couple of years. So
monitor that one.
See how he goes. On the Richmond side of things, Hugo Rouse-Smith only scored the 60, but again looked really good. And are you a fan? Because I know Louis, your mate Louis, is a fan of the Rouse-Smith.
The first 2 goals of the game or something like that. Kicked 2 goals in the first couple of minutes.
It was pretty. Yeah, it was early.
He's a bit electric, just like to watch and completely unfantasy related. Like, he's a really nice player to watch.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. I think, and he's only 20, so I think long term he played a wing this game as well. And just watch out, because I reckon he's sort of coming into his own at the moment, and it might just start to take off at the moment. So, again, the super coach probably shows his influence. 101 super coach for 60 fantasy, so he definitely influenced the game. And I just also wanted to mention that Jack Ross, not great. He actually ranked below Matt Roberts in this game for the champion data stuff. Yeah. So, anyway.
Fair enough.
That's the game.
All right, let's move on to Brisbane versus GWS. So, Jared Berry had a huge game, and he's been teasing us with that 2G 4P borderline really for a while, or a player that we expect to get to that point, but just hasn't done it. But he had 133 points, and that was his first ton of year, and the best score of his career actually as well in fantasy, and also the first ton since round 4 2020, where we got against the Adelaide Crows in their wooden spoon year. So beat up on them there. So it was basically the perfect wingers game. Like, McCluggage was out, and when I first saw the score and thought about it, I was like, it's obviously an effect of that. But he didn't actually receive any CBAs, Barry. He was on the wing the whole game, so it doesn't really kind of tie into McCluggage being out at all, really. Because Deven Robertson, who I'll talk about in a minute, Deven Robertson and Cam Rayner probably made up his midfield time. So
yeah, that's what I immediately thought when I saw the score. I was like, he must have been the one to get the bump.
Yeah,
but he wasn't.
So no, it's just a really good wingers game. So he goes missing being an outside player, I think, as well from time to time. But a really good sign here. But just someone that's always been a bit of a tease. That's all. I'll move on because we'll just monitor that because he just goes up and down each week. But just Oscar McInerney had 93 points working against Flynn, had 39 hitouts there, so just a nice score for him there. Deven Robinson's one I really want to talk about though. So he had 80 points, and like we mentioned, McCluggage was out. Had 9 CBAs and split between midfield and forward. Kicked 2 goals, looked real composed, looked like he kind of belonged in there, like he'd kind of taken that next step and kind of matured as a player. I reckon it's going to be hard to drop him from this one, but yeah, checkers, do you like Dev Robinson? What do you think his future is at Brisbane?
Yeah, he had great fantasy pedigree, and he's junior career. That first year he got drafted, we were a bit like, he's gone to Brisbane. It's not ideal for someone who's got this great fantasy prospects, because it'd be hard to crack a regular game at Brisbane as a youngster, but geez, he's getting to that third, fourth year sort of stage where he should be getting the best 22. Probably next year would be his big breakout year.
You'd hope so.
Penning him in for. So yeah, definitely got scoring potential.
Absolutely.
Is he going to be able to crack like that, like you said, or is he going to have to find somewhere else to go? Isn't he? He's a WA boy.
He is a WA boy.
Bit of West Coast maybe, a bit of a rebuild over there. Get him in there.
Him and Fiorini, you reckon, next year?
That's what I hope. And Paddy Dow
too.
Get the dream team reunited.
Jeez, you'd be happy with that.
I'd be very happy with that.
Wait and see what happens there. But yeah, Cam Rayner as well, moving on. Another one that kind of absorbed McCluggage's numbers. Had 79 points, so close to that 80 mark. Had basically a 50% share of the CBA this week, which is twice his average for the season. So this is what I expected from Rayner early on in the season. And we saw for a while that his CBA numbers dipped right down. He was basically playing purely forward. But yeah, hopefully it continues, but the factor is McCluggage is out. But I said at the start of the season, I just wanted a 70 average from Cam Rayner this year. Hopefully we get it from this point onwards anyway. Just another quick one for Brisbane as well. Jackson Pryor had 75 points. It was his best score so far. Just a real cushy wing roll. Still a ways from being fantasy relevant, if ever, I reckon. But looked okay in this game. Just did a few nice things that I noticed there. So just put him in your black book. One to watch there. But I think he's a fair way off doing anything in the fantasy world and locking down a spot or anything like that. Now, this is the big one, boys. Harry Himmelberg. We talked last week about the shift to defence. Had 101 points, and yeah, there's all to do with this shift to defence. Had 7 marks, 20 kicks, only 1 handball, so a really good ratio there.
20 kicks,
Took 5 kick-ins as well. So a lot of people have mid-season drafts coming up. I know we've got one this week. It's basically the Nick Martin Cup because he went undrafted in our league.
Oh, yeah.
The Nick Martin Punt-Off, actually, is what it is being called. But yeah, what do you reckon, Dossie? Do you reckon the move is sustainable for this kind of fantasy scoring?
It's hard without Whitfield in the team and where they're going to play him as well.
Point.
Like, if are they going to play him as as a half backman again, and is he going to take those kick-ins, and is he going to be the main distributor, or are they going to put him back on a wing or half forward or wherever they're going to play him? So it's hard to know what McVeigh's going to decide.
Bringing Riccardi back in kind of looks like it's kind of working for them, kind of. I don't know. He's offering that second option. Hogan's going okay, a few junk time goals late here, but yeah.
Well, it looks like they're going to try it for a little bit anyway. So I flagged it last week because I said he didn't score well, but he looked well. He looked good, and it wasn't an easy matchup last week.
Yeah.
This one was a good one. We've got the bye now, and then we find out after that where the setup is and what they're going to do with it. But it's one to watch. And you, as a fan, Checkers, he does like a torp up the middle of the ground there. So I think he's probably one of your favourites there.
Yeah, the much more tanned, athletic Himmelberg brother. Yeah,
have to get him on, mate.
Head
over to the Sydney and get him on the TikToks.
All right, James Peatling, 89 points, kicked 3 goals again, and probably should have had another couple more as well. I just don't see him kicking 3 goals a week sustainable for this kind of fantasy scoring. Tim Taranto out, playing up forward as well. Yeah, I think the scoring's going to dip eventually, but right now you'd be riding that wave, I think.
It's good to see, isn't it? Yeah. And another with pretty good fantasy pedigree as a junior, I think.
Yeah, and scored well last year playing as a defender.
He's kind of playing a bit of a swingman coming into the AFL. So
can do anything.
He's the one that I'm really keen to see post-bye. What he can do. He's probably top of my list, and obviously you got to try and pick him up off the waivers if he's not taken already from last week's big score, and just see where it goes. But like you said, the goal's probably not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, correct. And then the fantasy scoring probably dips from there. But anyway, Jesse Hogan had 83 points. He's averaging 84 in the last month of footy. And I said this pre-season, like, if he can get on the park, he generally scores pretty well. Kicked 2 goals, took 9 marks. There was a bit of junk to it, like I said just before. He kicked a few goals late. I think it was his goals late. And took quite a few marks late as well. So it all counts for fantasy though. But if he can get on the end of a few, he can score okay. Just wanted to think about if you're chasing it forward on your waiver wire. Matthew Flynn had 80 points in Priest's absence, but I'm just not sure how long that lasts. They probably ruck in tandem again at some stage as well, which is probably going to be bad for both of them. But we'll wait and see what happens there. And just a few role changes, I guess, that weren't really fantasy effective, but things I noticed. So Harry Perryman was playing that defensive midfielder role, like a really loose kind of tagging role. But wasn't super effective in doing it.
Yeah, you'd hope it was loose.
Yeah.
Lockie knew how 40 touches.
Exactly. It was just going to him and giving a bit of a shove at the contest. Yeah. But it wasn't really marking him super tightly. Only got 70. I got 79 points in the back of it. Lockie Ash went back to a halfback role after I think having bulk CBAs last week. I think it was. And Jared Brander. 53 points, but playing on a wing the whole time as well. So just interesting. A few different roles there that happened throughout this game. Just stuff to watch.
Yeah, I think Ash was out last week, so we hadn't seen him under the new coach. But
that actually explains the CBA bump on my numbers.
Where was Ward playing to start the game, if you remember? Was he at halfback again?
Yeah, he was, and then but he literally lasted like 10 minutes. Yeah. So
well, that's interesting as well, because I'd definitely have some stock in him as a backman though. So could be time to jump on after that score and missing a week.
All right, Checker's about to make his review debut. Geelong versus Adelaide. Tell us about it, mate.
Yeah, I was watching this one at work, and luckily it was pretty quiet, so I got a good viewing of it. I thought that, like, Stewart tore up the game. That was ridiculous. What did he have? 40 touches. But, like, all those Geelong defenders, man, they just tore up across halfback. They were controlling the whole game, like the switch, and they loved to chip. And it's almost like Stewart is, like, teaching all those young boys, like,
how to do it.
This is how
fantasy roles, like, you know, like kick, mark, kick, mark, kick, mark. It was ridiculous to watch. Crows took a very, like, small forward line in as well. So they only had Thilthorpe and Fogarty, no Tex because of COVID, no Himmelberg. There's, like, very easy for those boys just to find lots of space across at halfback.
Okay.
So it was a really good game for, like, rebounders, wingers, and people that play that switch out on the outside.
Yep.
First one, talk about Brian Myers. So he sort of was playing higher up the ground. He's kicked 3 goals, but he only really entered the 50 for those 3 goals. So it was like he was playing more like up, like on the wing with that role we're normally used to, like
like rolling up, like high half forward.
The connector role, is that what we call it?
Yeah. So it's sort of like that kick after Stewart, which was interesting to watch, and the fact that he still hit the scoreboard 3 times, like 3 goals.
Don't mind that.
It's pretty handy because he had 20 touches to go with that on that wing. It's just a hard one because he's only averaging 60 for the year, and it's like bit difficult. You know, he's 23 now. We've probably seen his best footy. We'd probably know what his like ceiling is. He hasn't really shown us that he's going to be like a fantastic fantasy scorer.
He was stuck as the sub last week as well for the 14 or whatever
last week. They do have a lot of small forwards too. It's like Gary Rowan, Stengel, Dowhouse, Brad Close. So he will probably have to keep playing that connector role. You won't see him up as a forward like he was in his first year, but...
Yeah, maybe even having a Stengel actually helps him out to get up the ground a bit, so they've got someone else back there, a bit of a goal snake.
Just if he can keep injury-free and sub-free, then could be handy like 70 points for those forward
I don't mind it. I've always,
Yeah, he's always shown promise, hasn't he?
He's just consistent as well, exciting. I think. Like, doesn't really have like gross games, unless he's a sub or injured, but...
I think do they have the Friday? Yeah, so you can loop him this week too. He's got the Friday game.
Handy.
Yeah.
Tommy Atkins had 17 tackles on the weekend, so he scored 96 points. 68 of those points came from tackles.
What? You're joking?
That's amazing.
It's crazy. He's had massive
God.
tackle numbers in the VFL in the past. I'm pretty sure before he got drafted, he broke the record for VFL tackles like
right.
the year before he got drafted, and that was sort of like the whole draft spiel. They're like, he's pulled him out of the VFL. Matty Scarlett knows him, and he's a tackle machine.
Wow, what's the record? Is it 18? I remember Libba got...
Something like that.
Yeah, Libba got 18.
I noticed in the CBA numbers, I think he had like a 68% increase in centre bounce attendances this week as well. So was he playing as like a defensive? Because last week he was kind of playing defensive mid in spurts. Was he kind of doing it again this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to recognise because of the way that Geelong dominated the game. Like, it wasn't really focusing on the CBAs. It was just like there was the way they were spreading across halfback and spreading across the wings. And the switch was like the big takeaway for me that I was watching on TV.
Yeah, 19's the record for Libba.
19.
Yeah. Cuttle off the record.
Well, Tommy Atkins comes up against the Bulldogs this week, so that'll be interesting. We have Libba going up. Tommy Atkins, the same team. Tackle off. Sam De Koning's had one of his best games so far in his career, 83 points. I actually put in my notes, I was like, someone at Geelong needs to get a haircut because Tom Stewart has long blonde hair, Sam De Koning's skinnier, and Tallwyn has long blonde hair, and then you got Zach Guthrie. And when I'm at work pouring beers and turning around trying to watch TV, it's very hard to go, is that Guthrie or is that Stewart? Most of the time it's Stewart, but
There's plenty of touches between all of them this weekend.
He's probably one that you won't see his best for a couple of years, but like, I don't know, if you got a very deep bench, he could be like a Darcy Moore type, sort of tall, rangy, third tall that takes a few, 6 clunks a game, 7 clunks a game.
He started, it doesn't look like he got any hit-outs this game, but he's been playing a little bit of ruck the last couple of weeks prior to this as well. Do you reckon that's a position he could sort of come into?
Yeah, he's got to put on some weight. He's very thin.
Yeah, skinny.
But the other one with long hair, Zach Guthrie. I know you're a big fan. I'm a big fan of him too. Yeah. If he's on your waiver wire right now, you'd be crying because the form he's in at the moment, like, you'd have to snap that up.
Absolutely. Is he in the picture for this mid-season draft of yours?
I think Kay's drafted him. Okay. Kay's was real high on him actually. Yeah, so he looked like a bit of a bust early on, but it's coming to fruition now.
Absolutely.
So he scored 80 on the weekend. He's got an 11 that he had earlier in the year, and he's averaged. But the last 4 games since he returned from the break after a little injury, he's averaging 82. So it's really on the mark of where you guys were ranking in pre-season as a potential breakout, and he's come back from that little break, and I think everyone's sort of like, same when J-Mac had that time away and he came back and scored big, everyone jumped off him, and when people jump off him, he's on the waiver wire, you got to jump on him.
He definitely was for a bit there.
So the Crows, they got pumped by 40 points, so it wasn't much to cheer about. O'Brien returned well, and then Strawn played well in the Sandful, so it's going to be interesting this week how they manage that. Does Kieran Strawn get a gig? Do they play 2 rucks? I don't know.
Surely they don't. It's West Coast. We were saying on the pod before, it's like Riley O'Brien even in Classic, he's probably going to go 150 again.
Against Callum Jamison. Who's the other one? Bailey Williams.
Whoever gets the gig, it's got to be Rob after that. He's going to go huge.
Jackson Haley continued his good form. So he was obviously out of favour with Matty Nix when he first came to the club. There was a lot of debate about whether he'd actually crack it as a footballer. And
didn't he have a few groin issues though as well?
Yeah, I think he had a few injury niggles, and he was his role wasn't the role that he wanted, and there was a bit of debate about is he going to crack it at the Crows, because he was a high draft pick. They obviously chased him, got him through the club through that preseason draft, and there was all this worry with Crows fans. But I think just the situation the Crows have found themselves in this year and the rebuild and everything, he's been forced to get a game and forced to get that role he wants, and he's taken it with both hands. So it's good to see. He had 112 points in the weekend. He had 13 of the 26 CBAs. Crouch had 15. So he was about on par with Matty Crouch for CBAs, which is good signs for someone who's young and trying to break into that midfield.
There's lots of talk that when Crouch comes back in, it's going to kill his scoring, but it didn't.
It didn't. No, they shared. They had very similar like centre bounce tendencies and. Yeah.
And he didn't dip, did he? I'll have a check. I don't think he dipped. Like, Haley hasn't been attending everyone every week. He's kind of had that.
I think it was pretty consistent, yeah. Like, I think he's been right up there. I've got it up
I'll
in
just
front
have
of
a
me.
look. 80, 59. So he had that big bulk one first, but then it's been 59, 62, 50. So he dropped a little bit.
The one he went bulk, he didn't score that well in
percentages.
either because he was tagging, wasn't he? Or
tagging.
Yeah.
Tagging Cripps.
Yeah.
Cripps had like 40.
Yeah. But anyway.
But he was in his draft year, he was very like one of the big fantasy players in that draft. I remember he was 190 centimetres, sort of that Patrick Cripps, Nat Fife. Everyone wants that tall mid Bontempelli. So he's got all the right key makings.
Like those names.
To make a primo mid. It's just he's just got to string together some good scores and really secure a spot in the Crows midfield. Best 22, all the secure that spot.
Well, I guess the question is he 2G 4P at the current minute? I think he's had four. The kind of criteria is you have 4 80+ scores in a row, or there's just a general consensus that like he's going to be too highly owned now. No one's giving him up. Are we confident he continues this scoring for the rest of the year, or do we have to have another look at him?
I actually think people still are doubting
because Crouch was out of the team. So now that Crouch came back, I didn't see him, but he's still on a lot of waivers that I was in the draft league this week.
So I think we give him I'd be happy. I just want to talk about him for another week. Let's keep him in.
All right, 1 more week. Done.
And then the other one I picked up was Jake Saligo, who we actually kicked the torp with a couple weeks ago. He's a great guy. He's really busy, young bloke.
So what's his torp like?
Fantastic. Barefoot torp, 50 metres.
Beautiful.
And a $100 fine now to go with it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's been fined. Crows players can't kick torps with us anymore. So the size was the major concern for me when I've watched Steel Strong get drafted. He obviously had a few good games in the preseason, but I compare him to Zach Butters at Port, and that Zach Butters, everyone knocked him on his size in that first year and said, he can't play midfield yet. He's going to have to earn his trade, but he's a jet. And
he's a little rat dog.
Jake Saligo is like a little rat dog with the Crows. He's very zippy, he's very exciting, buzzy, tackles, he hits the contest hard. So he was about last week, I think he's had a 70 odd score, and this week he had 61. So kicked a goal, had 7 tackles. When he kicked his goal, he got really up and about. So just keep an eye on him in terms of could get a mid forward status next year, or maybe even later in the year, which could be handy if he's dishing up 70s and 80s. So
just checking if he's available on my. I might just stash that one.
The last one, there was Wayne Malira, only had 64% time on ground, so he came into the game very underdone, and he's on a lot of waivers, and he obviously had a lot of interest pre-season. So you probably can sit on that one for a couple more weeks and just wait till he sort of earns himself back into some fitness.
I'd want to see him a bit more.
That's for sure. Match fitness.
All right, checkers, you're on a roll, mate. So keep going. Move on to Melbourne versus Fremantle.
Freo. It was a massive upset. It was a crazy game.
It was a great game to watch.
It was crazy. The last quarter, Freo, man, they're just piling them on. It was like how it started as they might win by a couple points, but it turned into almost a 40-point drubbing. It was crazy.
Yeah,
controlled the whole game. Petrarca obviously came out after the game and said he was sick. So changes a few things in terms of how you analyse this game, because at the time you didn't really know that. You just thought he had a stinker.
Second half they locked down Oliver as well, so that just kind of killed their midfield run as well.
Was
it Aish tagging him?
Yeah, it was actually. I think. Yeah, he did that last week a bit. I think as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I actually missed this game, but I got told by the pod lads were telling me, because I was like, why did Petrarca suck?
So
there's a few decent scores from Melbourne anyway. They did lose by almost 40 points, but it was only until the last quarter. They were right in it until probably 15 minutes ago. So it wasn't like they had a shit game. It was pretty up and even to that last sort of Freo piled on a heap of goals. James Jordan had 91 points, which was it's a good improvement. He did complete games. So he had 27 touches and a goal. And I saw Ed Langdon was out. So Ed Langdon was out of the side, and he played on the wing. So he was all on the wing all day and just sort of played the Ed Langdon role. So I wonder, you put him on your watch list maybe, because he would be on a lot of waivers and sitting on that mark.
Yeah, we've seen it. He's had a couple of nice scores. He's playing wing with Langdon in the side as well. So it's he's popped a couple of nice scores in the last month, I want to say. A couple of 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, he has been scoring well on that wing regardless. But
there's probably one, as we've seen with Gus Brayshaw, there's one defensive wing for Melbourne usually, one really defensive wing and one attacking, which is the Langdon. So, it's going to be... I'll be interested to see.
Tommy Sparrow played the other wing on the weekend.
He did too.
He only scored 52 points. He had 3 CBAs, but most of it was all on the wing. And he's another D, so they've got Langdon's probably your best winger. When he comes back, he'll be set firing.
Yeah,
Brought him to the club for a reason. But James Jordan and Tommy Sparrow probably fighting it out for the other wing. I don't know. It's a difficult one. Just keep him on your mind. Jake Bowie. I've never said this bloke's name out loud.
Oh, Dossie has a few times.
Come on, mate.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Do you
I know who he is.
But how do you say it?
Got hit in the face by footy at training during the week.
I saw that, yeah.
Concussion protocol concern. But
Thank you to the listener who sent that through for me because I didn't see it. So, yeah, thank you.
But he had 87 points on the weekend. So he's had scores of 125, 92 and 87 this year, which all was like shows some pedigree and shows a bit of potential as like a rebounding defender. But he's also had scores of 42, 38 and a 52. So it's very high ceiling, very low floor, which probably isn't great for your draft teams because a low floor can crush you any week if you want to.
I'm just really interested to see because I think Salem's close to a return
This week, they reckon?
Yeah,
4 Ds
so
coming
I just want to see what happens there.
Stephen May, I'm not sure. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention. Stephen May got injured real early, which means Bowie took all the kick-ins as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think that's right.
he had 24 kicks and most of them were out of
So that kind of helped out
deep
as well.
back pocket or
Right. So we need to trade Stephen May to West Coast as well.
Cozzy Pickett had 82 points. He was up the ground a lot more. So Fritsch played deep forward, kicked 3 snags, I think, and Cozzy Pickett played more like that high half forward. And
Beauty.
he had 17 touches, 15 kicks, sort of was playing high up on that sort of like, that connector half wing, half forward role, which is, I don't know whether they're using him for that tackle and bump and sort of that speed. It was a bit unusual. But
usually when he scores that well, it's based on like 5,
kicking
6 tackles
snags.
or scoring goals.
Yeah, he's normally that has 6 touches, kicks 4 goals type player in the forward pocket. But they have talked about him when he got drafted that he could potentially push in the midfield in his future, and he's got the leg speed and that Byron Pickett tackle that everyone wants to see.
Yeah.
They want to see Cozzy turn out like that. So Freo defenders tore up here, and I think you mentioned it before, and that who are they playing this week? Whoever's playing Melbourne this week should bring in all their key tools.
Sydney. So I was talking like McCarten
Paddy Mccarten.
and Jake Lloyd's probably finally. I know Kays has been saying sell Jake Lloyd. He's probably going to have a big one. Blakey probably back in and have a huge one.
Please, Jake Lloyd, have a big one. Please.
So it was like back when Louis and I used to have our podcast, we like flagged this real early. It was like Melbourne can be really inefficient inside forward 50. So they have one of the best midfields in the comp. They have the best ruckman in the comp. They pump the ball forward so much. But this is when they brought Ben Brown to the club. It was like, we need to really fix this inside 50 type stuff. Their forwards stank on the weekend. Ben Brown and who was the other one? Sam Wiedemann. I think they kicked 0 goals, 1, and had like 9 touches between them. I think Ben Brown had 2 touches on the weekend. So he's just a guy that, has kicked 70 goals in a year before, and Freo defenders just capitalised. All of them had like 10 plus marks.
Yeah, cheap is like nearly 80% time on ground for Ben Brown for 2 touches.
Yeah, it was really not ideal for the 2 talls for Melbourne. So Heath Chapman had 100 points, 14 marks. This is a hard one. So there's all these like Freo defenders who popped up this week, and you're going to see them when you waiver, but it's like, do you like judge them based on this game or based on the whole season? So Chapman had 100. Brennan Cox had 96 points with 12 marks. I'm trying to think who are the other Freo defenders. Luke Ryan had 14 marks. Hayden Young had 10 marks.
Luke Ryan had like a 50-point last quarter or something.
It was crazy. So all these like key tools you'll see on your waiver this week. You'll be looking at being like, well, that's a good score last week. But you have to sort of take into consideration. Ben Brown had 2 touches. Like, there's a key tool like going to have 2 touches. So
it's a good point.
And good call last week, Dossie, as well. On the defenders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, do it again this week, Sydney.
Made me look even better.
And then the Rory Lobb had 103 points. He's so up and down. It's like injury prone, and his age and everything is just concerning. But when he turns it on, he can be like one of the best forwards in the league, and he's like really sticky hands and kicks a bag, but it's once every now and in a blue moon. So a bit hard to sort of like...
Yeah, he's so up and down.
The injury proneness and his age just really concerns me.
Once in a while, though.
And then all the media this week just been like ramping on about like Freo's key small forwards, because they are the ones who sort of turn the game around. There's Michael Walters and
Lockie Schultz.
Lockie Schultz kicked 4 goals, and Michael Frederick kicked a couple goals. But again, I mean, they're sort of burst players, and they're probably not overly fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
It's really dependent on when they do kick a bag of 4, and other weeks they're going to kick 0. So
we like to say Lockie Schultz is the keeper that won, like the keeper is basically mascot, because he's like never going to be good enough to be 2G 4P. He's always just going to be floating around the show.
60s and
so.
70s,
just enough to keep talking about him. So.
Once every 4 he kicks a bag and scores that 100 or whatever.
Exactly. Start talking about him again.
I think maybe you could talk about this though quickly, because we talked about him a couple of times. Darcy Tucker, has he just been one of the big disappointments? Were you
Yeah,
big on him this year?
pre-season.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks he's out of the mid role, but it happens. We've seen it with a few players like pre-season. They get this role and they sort of secure it, and then they cop an injury or they miss a couple of weeks, and someone else takes that role, and it's really hard to earn it back. Like I think the other one off the top of my head was like Taron Thomas pre-season. Everyone had him penned in to play midfield, and he hasn't been doing it since he come back from injury. So
Yeah, that's right.
So if when you're hot, you're hot, and when you're not, you're not. So if they're out of the team for 4 weeks, it's very hard to get back into that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
All right. Is there anything else from that game, Checkers? Or you
Nah, I
good?
just can't believe Melbourne got rolled.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Wasn't it?
Bowie finally defeated for one game.
Anyway, let's move on to West Coast versus Western Bulldogs. Put my hand up to watch this one. This is a sacrifice game, this one. Terrible
Well
to
done,
watch. Fell asleep in the last quarter, actually, so I'm sorry if I missed anything then. But
Don't blame me, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I've watched West Coast for like, the last too long. I had a week off this week. It was
anyway,
nice.
Brady Hough, 99 points, playing off halfback. The disposal was a little wayward at times, but looked all right back there. So he had 9 marks. A lot of chip around in this game for West Coast, just the classic, we can't do anything going forward, so we'll just try to hold off for a bit. So he got involved in that.
That's huge for a rook.
The ball
think
was down there a lot as well.
A
So.
lot of my mates messaged my group chat. Well, some of them are just like aren't like fantasy players. Like they just put a team in, and then all of them message me going, "Who's this Brady Hough guy? Like I've had him since round 1." I'm they're just sitting on their bench because they just don't do their trades each week and just check in every month or whatever. So he's one of those guys that probably got a few selections.
I reckon I started.
Yeah,
a lot of people started him.
Round 1,
And
he
then,
played the first 3 games, I reckon.
Yeah. He played a few, and then it was just kind of.
Anyways, I'm not expecting this each week. Let's just monitor that one. But yeah, I think he was. I can't actually remember. I think he was recruited as a midfielder though. So wait and see what happens there.
If outside runner.
Yeah, that wing type. I think that's where he started playing as well. But yeah, so see how that kind of holds out. I think Luke Foley's one they like playing back there, so he was out with concussion. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, another one that was kind of like not trusting it at all is Jack Darling. Had 91 points, he had 4 goals, and a tip of the cap performance check, as we called it. A bit of an anomaly score, one that we don't expect each week.
The Rory lob.
Yeah,
when they kick a bag, they pop in here.
Tip of the cap. But there was an interesting stat that he hadn't kicked a goal before the 4th quarter, I reckon, this season. He'd only all his goals had come in the last quarter.
Garbage time.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually kicked a few in the first half this week, so yeah, it's a bit different. Jackson Nelson, 87 points. Spent a fair bit of time defence this week. I think he's usually in the midfield. Well, been in the midfield early this season, hasn't he? When there was a lot of outs and stuff like that.
Yeah, he can tag on occasion. And does some weird roles, but
he had 23 points across halfback. I think Shannon Hearn's out as well. There's quite a few West Coast players missing at the moment in that defence, so it's kind of hard to get a bit of a read on where all these players are at. Another one that we've really liked this season, there's been a lot of hype about, is Greg Clark. I pulled the top 100 AFL Fantasy Classic players that appear in the most top 100 teams, and Greg Clark is in every one of them so far. But there's no surprise with the price and the first game.
Yeah, bit underwhelming for what we thought. I think the name Michael Barlow was thrown around a couple of times.
Very hard when you're playing for West Coast, so to score tons every week.
Yeah, but yeah, like he was on the wing again last week, so we went wing, inside, wing, and then wing again. Right? Is that how it's pretty much sequenced?
Yeah, he has only had like one game properly inside, I think.
Yeah, to me, it just looks like he's not used to playing on the outside, but just doesn't look quite good enough for an inside role as well. It's like he's in a bit of limbo between where his spot is in the midfield, I find. So we'd like to see him on the inside, but I think he'll just get towed up at the moment when he goes in there because there's not a lot of support in there from the West Coast.
He's 24 though. Give him a shot.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to lose?
Yeah,
We're losing
true.
by 100 points anyway.
True.
I don't think you're going to lose much chucking him in there.
Nah, you're right. But
so he's had one game. So round 9 he had 72% centre bounces. The rest 8%, 14%, and 0%.
Yeah, so there you go. But yeah, it just doesn't look like he's suited to play on the outside, that's all. But anyway, move on to some Western Bulldogs players.
Quickly, it's not that super relevant, but Jermaine Jones, who's been kind of good
in defence this
in and out.
week.
He got defender status, DPP.
Yeah, cool.
Unless he gets midfield time, irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Taylor Duray, moving on to some Bulldogs now. So he had 92 points, pushing up from halfback. Got a lot of touch up the ground. Even kicked the goal as well earlier in the game, so he joined in on the party. We've been really hot on Ed Richards this week. But last week Duray was out last week. He comes back in and we saw Ed Richards kind of come back.
You guys
to the
flagged
fold.
it as, I think, saying...
Oh, I didn't. Kays did. It was actually Kays' call. But and it kind of looked like it was happening. But it'd be interesting because I still think there's always been room for multiple defenders to score well in that Western Bulldogs defence. So I'm not writing it off or anything. But
I remember West Coast defenders against West Coast because it's not down there that much. I've not
unless there's someone like Tom Stewart who just is like, I'm going to just kick to myself 45 times.
It's been a weird one because I remember Gus Brayshaw mopped up, but then Bowie, who had gone okay against weak opposition, he comes up against West Coast and gets like a 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever. But yeah, I don't think necessarily you go up against West Coast and expect big scores from your defenders. I think the points for and against, it's not too great for West Coast. It's sort of mid-table.
Yeah, cool.
No, it's down the bottom. It is down the bottom.
So, actually harder. No surprise, I guess, that a few suffered this week. Guy who's not suffering at the moment is Bailey Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Dossie, you love this guy. Everyone knows that. We don't really need to talk about it too much. But 88 points, same wing roll. He looked really hungry for the footy and just loves a snag, loves to sneaking forward and kick goal. Kicked 2 in this game. I think he missed one as well. So I'm giving him one more week, Dossie. 2G4P, I reckon it is inbound though.
Wow, you're that high, yes.
Yep,
I love that.
I reckon he's just going to automatically qualify. He's going to get another 80 next week.
I just love that they've tried something different.
Have you guys ever heard of his sample game that he had in under 18s?
56 touches for Glenelg under 18s.
Dossie knows about it.
You have to send Louis a message about this one because when we were running our podcast, we talked about it for 12 weeks in a row and it was ridiculous. So he just kept dishing up 70s, but we were just waiting for that 150 fantasy score to come out because he had it in juniors. That's
right. And I was like, I've been talking about it that I want him to play midfield for his whole career, and they've tried to be playing as a key defender.
Bulldogs is a team full of midfielders that they all just rotate. Yeah. Caleb Daniel was a midfielder in juniors, and they all were. They've got 24 midfielders.
It's their recruiting strategy, really. Just lastly, Lachlan McNeil had 82 points. He was pretty low that forward, but being against West Coast, I just don't think he can take much out of it. That's all. I'd want to see a lot more before I consider him anyway. But another tip of the cap performance there. I think I'm going to roll into the next game, Gold Coast versus Hawthorne. I did 2 Saturday night games because I'm a machine, Dossie.
Thanks, mate.
Dossie, for the record, Dossie was meant to cover this one, but he got way too hammered on Saturday night after a big Kenilworth win and was too hungover to watch the replay. So
yes, that is accurate.
I picked up the slack.
Thank you.
So no worries, mate. I actually wanted to see a few players in this game, so it wasn't too much of a hassle. Lockie Weller is the first one to talk about. So he had 103 points, and he was solid in defence, just rebounding well. Pretty easy game. Hawks were pretty wayward coming into their forward line and just intercepted a bit. Had 7 kick-ins as well. So he only had 2 kick-ins in the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, he kind of bumped that back up this week. So that was helping out this fantasy scoring. I think it was pushing up the ground a little bit more as well. He seemed a bit deeper this week. So just another one that's been up and down this season. Looks like he can be a fantasy jet at times, but then can go missing as well. So, yeah, just one to note. If he keeps that kick-in role happening, he might put up some decent scores over the next few weeks.
I thought he'd be 2G, but...
he's had a good year so far.
Been up and down, hasn't he?
He had a few off weeks. I think when he had an injury or something, he had a little.
He hasn't been consistent enough to get the 2G, I don't think, just yet. But yeah, he has put up some good scores. But anyway, Nick Holman, moving on, had 96 points. Pretty much another tip of the cap. He had 14 disposals and 13 tackles, so almost had more tackles than disposals. Up forward, just competing, applying pressure more than anything. Yeah, just tip of the cap there. And then pretty much the same thing, maybe Chol, 71 points. He was up forward. I thought he might get a bit more ruck time this week just against the Hawthorne who didn't have any rucks. I thought they might just give him a run through in there. It seemed to just kind of be the same old for them. He kicked 3 goals and he was on Granger Barras early, then moved to Sicily.
What's that? 7 goals in 2 weeks? How many kick? He kicked 4 the week before?
Oh, who's that?
Chol. He's so up and down.
He's kicked 7 in 2 weeks. Put him in the Cholman
medal. Yeah. But before that, though, he's been scoring 20s.
Yeah.
Things like that.
He hasn't kicked a bag all year. Depending on when he kicks goals. It's not a key
absolutely.
Forward.
So, yeah, it's a tricky one. I've got him as my backup ruck, and I'm having to run Sam Hayes at the moment because I've got Lycett as my number one ruck.
He should be back after the buys, hopefully.
Yeah, God, I hope so. Moving on to some... we've got one more for Gold Coast. Jeremy Sharp is one we've been looking at for pretty much all season, especially in the VFL, some of the scores he's been putting up. Checkers, you were super high praise. I reckon I remember a tweet you were saying back him for the Rising Star. I was all aboard that.
Dossie and I are in a keeper league, and I've had Jeremy Sharp on my bench all year, just red dotting all year.
Yeah. I was all aboard that Rising Star bet.
Sportsbet actually listed him for the Rising Star, but it turns out he's ineligible.
Really?
He's played too many games, so he played 11 games for the season, so they screwed up their market.
Okay.
But I was like, if he is eligible, this man is crazy. Last year he was racking up hundreds.
Yeah, it was huge.
Back
in the last 6 games of last season.
He had an injury and then sort of struggled to get back in the side because Gold Coast were winning a few games on the trot, so... Yeah.
And they've had that weird game plan where it seems like it's far less fantasy relevant than it was last year. Just get it inside 50 kind of at all costs.
Get it to Chol.
Yeah. Well, I think the original game plan was going to be King, but yeah, Chol's stepped up for
Get it
sure.
to Casbolt.
Yeah, Casbolt's definitely going right. Yeah. But yeah, look, him and Ellis were on the wings. Ellis dominated, but it's just good to see him in the side. Just hoping he holds over the next few weeks because, yeah, he's one that shows so much promise, Jeremy Sharp.
Yeah, I hope he holds,
on
but
that.
is there room for one more player in there?
Well, Fiorini's, I guess, made way for him. So, yeah, he probably should hold actually for a few weeks. But
I just wanted to get to West Coast now. That's my only goal. Fiorini to West Coast
How many touches
campaign.
over the VFL on the weekend?
It was 40.
Do you reckon he comes straight back in then?
Nah. Not with Stewie. Not with Stewie at the helm.
On to some Hawks. Harry Morrison, 99 points. Pretty standard game for him, just on the wing. Found a fair bit of the footy. He's averaging 79. I think he actually has forward status, so he's probably worth owning Harry Morrison just as one of your last forward spots. Can score okay on his day. So it's pretty...
Did he get a couple of CBAs? Did I see that?
Not that I remember, but possibly. Speaking of CBAs, though, Will Day had a stack again. So 25% CBAs and then out to the wing. And this kind of happened in the first half, but yeah, it's just a weird one. He only scored 65, but he was used in the midfield quite a bit. And then he switched back in defence in the last quarter or the last half, and he looked way more comfortable back there. But you know, Kays will love this one because we always talk about, you know, CBA. Like, but do people realise that all the CBA means is this guy is playing some time in the midfield and midfielders are the best scorers? That's all we're looking for.
You do get occasionally. There is some players. I'm trying to think. Gus Brayshaw wasn't really midfield when he was going downhill, but now he's gone back. He's you know, so like,
but like we're just saying, like it's just a common fact that midfielders score better generally in fantasy. Not all the time. You get some shit midfielders. You get some taggers. You get stuff like that. But like,
it's the most you're around the footy all the time. You get to run around the ground.
It doesn't guarantee points. It's not what we're saying. It's just we're saying these guys.
Sometimes
are
when you're going about, you get more marks, you get more kicks. When you're in the midfield, you got to get
anyway.
on the hands,
with Will Day, for me, like he looks like a player that's just not built for inside mid. Like he looks like an outside type, halfback flanker, winger type. He just looks uncomfortable in there. Like he's coming up against like Rao and Took Miller and stuff like that. They just body him out to it. It's just, it seems weird that they're trying to give him so much of, like it's happened the last few weeks that Will Day's had some bulk CBA
maybe they
time.
just want a penetrating kick
maybe
in there alongside guys with
height,
like, Mitchell's not a penetrating kick. I don't think many of the guys in there are. So
maybe
might
that's
just be trying to get someone to hand it to so he can get it out of there.
Yeah, this just doesn't seem to be working. He looked a lot better when he was in defence, but it's been interesting. But yeah, with Josh Ward and Warple out of the midfield as well, like it just seems like things are a little bit more settled in there at the moment as well. Like we've seen Mitchell put up some big scores the last few weeks as well. So I know there was a report coming out saying Mitchell's still not sold on his role this year and what's going on.
Yeah, he had his most centre bounces.
Yeah, most centre bounces of the year and not sold where his role is. But anyway, we'll wait and see what happens there. But yeah, that's a game for me. Checkers, are you a St Kilda man?
Yeah.
See, like I've seen you wear like every piece of footy.
Now I'm wearing West Coast socks.
Yeah,
Oh, the good socks. I got the same ones. Yeah.
I reckon I've seen you rock a Crows 1997 Premiership T-shirt though.
Yeah,
that was against St Kilda.
Fan of the game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know
love
if
football.
I don't know if I could wear a Geelong 2007 top that.
I've got a Gold Coast Guernsey. I've got a Collingwood and Gold Coast Guernsey.
I have a mate who he worked at the Port store, and that grand final 2007, Port printed up Premier's tees in advance. And obviously, you print them up so you can sell them at the store. So they tossed the box, of course. But he pinched one out of the box before they tossed it. So he occasionally sometimes will bring out this Port Adelaide 2007 Premier's T-shirt, and I was like, that is the most rare T-shirt. It was like that needs to be stored, like framed or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's only one that exists.
Amazing.
The rest of them got burnt. So
just rewriting history.
Yeah. So St Kilda and North, I think we knew how it was going to sort of go before the game started. North aren't in a great spot at the moment. So I'll start with Mitch Owens. That was a great story, and everyone sort of was buzzing about that on the fantasy forums because he scored 22 in the first round and only had like that 50% time on ground and didn't get a crack. Spent all that time out of the team, came back, scored 95. So kicked 2 goals in about a minute and a half and laid a few tackles. And the key takeaway was the first round when he played, I think Ratton came out and said, it was Ratton and Jack Steele both said in an interview, they're like, he's the next Jack Steele. Like he with the club, he's 190 centimeters. He's a tackling machine. He trains and like shadows Jack Steele at training. So like Jack Steele like taking on your wing, being like, this is how you're going to play like that big tackling game.
That's why I picked him in Classic because
Yeah, I
of those
picked him. I
words.
started him in Classic as well, and then unfortunately traded. Not unfortunately, because I think everyone had to trade him out. But
Yeah.
Is Ratton? I remember him doing similar stuff for certain players like previously. Is Ratton one of the biggest hype men in the biggest hype men coaches in the AFL? He pumps them up. I remember picking a few Saints last year. I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna have a breakout.
You just got to take a step back and have a think about when he
So
when he comes out with
he
one.
scored 95. He had 10 CBAs, spent a little bit of time at forward. 10 tackles in that 95, so that's 40 of his points. He also kicked 2 goals. So I don't know if he's going to lay 10 tackles and kick 2 goals every week. Don't expect tons or anything, but it's definitely a name for the future to keep on your cards.
Absolutely.
He had like 20 touches and 30 touches the 2 games leading up in the VFL and was in all the highlights reels. So Saints love him. He'll be an interesting one, especially with Jack Steele out of the side. With Steele out of the side, Seb Ross played a good game as well. So he had 111, 20 CBAs, which is the most for the Saints. 6 of his last 8 games have been above 90, so that's a interesting stat.
So
So
he's
basically
now,
2 G4P. I'm
Has Seb
assuming, but-
Ross had seen the biggest bump since Steele's been out?
Well, Steele's only been out for a week, has he?
Yeah, 2 weeks, I reckon.
yeah.
but like, everyone was saying,
back-to-back
everyone was saying
tons.
Brad Crouch was going to be the beneficiary, but
Brad
it seems
Crouch
like
has
he's-
already just been Brad Crouch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gresh has had a monster one in this one too,
Yeah,
though.
true.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Seb Ross, he's one that just like slides on waivers as well because he's
Yeah.
getting old and people.
He was so late in our draft.
Yeah,
this
he's
year.
like 29.
He's
and people
almost
just
like
write
we
him off.
almost can't 2G for PM because someone will get angry at him next week. And
Yeah,
be back.
absolutely.
He's so up and
I
down.
always feel with him. Do you remember David Armitage had like he was a really good fantasy player,
That
and
one,
then they
yeah.
sort
that
of,
one season, yeah.
yeah, they Saints cut him when he was like 29.
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
just feeling like anyone who's good at Saints, your career's done at 29. Like,
Yeah, guys,
so
that's
it
cool,
always
huh?
just clicks in my head. Like Jack Steven, like gone
Yeah.
at 29. Like,
Yeah, true
if
that.
you're 29 at Saints,
Look
fantasy
out.
career's done. Yeah.
And they both kind of had that 1 year together, didn't they? Gone 110. That
Yeah.
Armitage and Stevens, I reckon, that 1 year.
Yeah, they were both really fantasy relevant, and the next year just
Nothing.
Yeah. One bloke who is 29 in a couple of weeks' time, Brad Hill.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no.
I just put that age in there because if you got to keep a league, obviously keep an eye on all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
he had 127 points and 111 last week, so he's had 2 massive weeks. Indigenous rounds, both of them. He's been the face of it, been poster boy of in the Sir Doug Nichols round. So he had 33 disposals, 28 of them were uncontested, and he was just mopping up the cheapest of footy on the outside.
What's been his role? Because I know he went forward.
Half-back flank.
So
Him and
he went
Sinclair
back,
has
he went back
been
again.
like
yeah.
so much
'Cause
cheap footy.
He went forward for like a couple of weeks, and I was
He's
like
been tossed
really
around.
worried. Like for
He
his
went
scoring.
He went ham last week as well, but it like starting on halfback flank, but it literally looks like he's just got a license to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Like he's just roaming around
because
getting
he's
kicks.
quick.
Yeah,
He's very quick.
he can get back to defend when he needs to, and
Yeah.
but he like sneaks
Didn't
forward.
he have a big kind of second half of the year last year, or at least he came home
Yeah,
strong?
he
I
had a
reckon.
stinker at the start, and they were bagging him about his kicking efficiency, and they were almost going to drop him. I
and they
think
couldn't
Saints,
get him in the.
Saints
they couldn't
fans
get
wanted
the
him
ball
done
in his hands,
and
yeah.
then he had to turn it around. Even when you got all that heat on you, you do turn it around normally. So the only thing to flag there is like Hunter Clark's pretty close to a comeback. Jack Billings is sitting on the sidelines. You got
Yeah, I saw that.
Good
Bartel,
point, yeah.
Nick Caulfield probably sniffing around soon when he comes back from his injury. So there's a lot of young blokes they're probably going to have to test that want to mop up cheap ball and be
So
halfback
is
flankers.
this a
and-
sell high then? He's nearly 29.
Yeah, yeah. If
He's
you got him
got
in your
two
side,
good
look
scores
for
in
the
a row.
trade.
Is it
do you
time to
think?
offload?
Do you think if you're pushing for a flag in your keeper leagues this year, he's someone you target for the back end?
Yeah, definitely. He's like,
because you probably get him cheaper given his age.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
definitely.
know. He's a
But yeah,
guy
do you,
that
I guess the point is, do you think he holds?
He's a guy
this for
that
the rest
I'd be
of the
so
season?
worried coming into like a
Same.
keeper
There's another
league.
one that's
You're
like-
in your finals.
Yeah,
he's going to
massive,
drop a 20 if he gets tagged or something. Like,
Massive ceiling, low 4, and I
Yeah.
hate them in
Yeah,
draft. Like I love
absolutely.
a bloke who just
They'll kill
scores
you.
consistent 70s, but a bloke who can dish you a 30, he's going to
I'd
ruin
say
your
they'll
draft.
kill you in the
I'd be
finals.
on the sell high bandwagon, I think.
Talk to me about my man Tim Membry. One of my
Yeah, so
favourite
he's one who's just
Saints.
like that consistent. He's not a high ceiling, he's not a low 4. He consistently plays higher up the ground. So Max King plays deep forward, and Max King I think the other week kicked a bag against the Crows. Did he have 6 touches, 6 goals or something like that?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. He doesn't find the footy.
I love the way Membry, like as well, when you guys are struggling, he'll just go sit back in defence and take a few grabs.
Yeah,
and stuff
he
like
goes
that.
on the ground. He go up the wing. He goes and chases
Yeah.
his footy. It reminds me of like Matt Richardson back in the day, like chasing footy when he can't get it in deep forward.
Yeah.
So he kicked 2 goals, had 14 touches, 90 points. But he's just consistently in that like 60 to 90 range each week, which is really great for like draft leagues. If
You
can
play
just
him as like
bank-
F4, and
yeah,
like,
you
it's an
just
awesome one
bank
for
that you know you're not going to get a 30 out of him, and you know a 60 is a good score. Who cares?
Yeah, and every
Like,
now and then you will get a 90.
yeah, he kicks a small bag.
Yeah,
Another one who's really good for that, Callum Wilkie. So Saints fans are all over him lately. They're blowing up the forums about how much they love Callum Wilkie. So he's a mature age recruit. Scored 86 points on the weekend, but 8 of his 11 games this year, he scored above 70. So he's just really consistently just hitting 70-plus scores, which is another great thing to have in a draft league, so keeper league.
100% Tog.
Is that right?
Only player on the ground.
Nice.
North Melbourne, so they lost, it was 50-point drubbings, not much to write home about, but Jed Anderson obviously missed a lot of footy with his
This is the one I want to hear about.
debacle.
This is the one I want to hear about.
148 points. He had a 67-point first quarter with 7 tackles in that first quarter.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's crazy. That's almost, imagine if you had him as like a VC loophole or something. Not that you would on a Sunday, but imagine the 67-point first quarter, how much you'd be writing home about in your group chats and on Twitter and stuff.
I definitely was. I tweet about it.
Yeah.
I traded him out a couple of weeks ago in our keeper checkers.
Well, I offered
I
him
got
up to...
Darcy Cameron in, but that's...
I offered him up to
can he
K's.
replicate? Is he going to... like in
So he's forward
every
listed
format?
at the moment, but... I
not gonna keep
don't
that.
think he's going to keep that. And the other thing is he's a massive roller coaster player. So you might score that 148 this week, and he might dish you a 30 next week, which we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Roller coaster players can shoot your team down. You really don't want a 38 in your midfield come finals time.
I offered him up to K's a couple of weeks ago for Matt Rao, but I'm kind of glad he didn't accept that.
What
one.
do
Cancelled that one.
you think he can average, though, for the rest of the year?
Well, he had that monster year. It was
He can go 80.
last year or something.
2020, in the COVID year when there was low time on ground, he was a monster that year.
Yep.
Last year, he played the first 2 games. He missed round 1. Played the second game, had 120. Played the third game, round 3, had 60 but injured at half time. So he was on before half time, actually. Halfway through the second quarter, he got injured and was already on 60. Then he played forward for the rest of the year when he came back, and that's how he got forward status, and only averaged 70.
Yeah.
I think he can pretty easily on 80 average for the rest of the year from here on in.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that North
yeah.
is struggling and they're going to need to do everything they can to keep fans on board. So if Jed Anderson's the man and he's finally found some match fitness, you're going to want to push as much midfield time into him as you can.
Those tackle numbers is just what you can bank on with him. So
yeah,
you can go big on that on the back of that.
I'm just trying to figure out how much of a mistake I've made here, boys.
Yeah. What'd you get for him?
Darcy Cameron.
Oh,
So like
I'd be laughing.
short-term dubs, but
Fine.
yeah.
No, it's fine because they're both probably next year. You're going to have a few questions, I think. So that's fine, Dossie.
Thanks, mate.
Taron Thomas, I think we brought him up earlier, but that whole pre-season, everyone's so hot on him, gets injured, loses that midfield role, and he's not really playing midfield anymore.
He has to be a buy low, though. He has
Dossie's
to
been
be.
trying to bring him back to the podcast for weeks, and me and
Yeah,
Jay's been
yeah.
basically like, no,
They're
you can't. But now I actually wrote this in B2P this week, so
Yeah,
it
it
has to be.
has to be back to the
Yeah,
podcast.
so he had 44 points on the weekend. Only saw 67% time on ground, so it was low time on ground. He's still working his way into match fitness. I'm not sure. It's really unusual stuff, but 8 CBAs, so barely any CBAs. I think there was about 30 all up that game. So
Something's up, hey?
yeah, he's playing
but-
forward. The penny will drop though. I've had him on my bench in keeper leagues for ages. I just know that at some point, and it happened last year, he was scoring real average all year, and then he went on a hot streak. So
you're the owner.
you want
of
that
it,
hot
yeah.
streak. You really want a hot streak of Taron Thomas because it's going to be 4 games in a row where you get him
So can I buy low from you? Checkers?
it depends what you're offering up.
We'll talk about that one.
I don't want any West Coast players.
After the show. Anyways, anything else from that game, checkers?
Tristan Zeri. So I'm hoping I said that right. It's another player.
Cherry.
I've not been on a podcast
Cherry.
in a couple of years, so I don't say players' names out loud too often. He scored 39 points on the weekend, 2 low scores in a row. A lot of people had him in Classic and everything earlier in the year, and he was number 1 ruck in North Melbourne. So I remember the first game of the year, I was actually at the MCG and I was sitting highest seat you could find in the stand, looking down the ground. I could see Goldie playing high half forward, see Callum Jones playing deep forward, and just watching these rucks all game because I had Zeri on my bench. I was like, I need to watch this man.
Yeah.
And he was number 1 ruck and he kept it for a couple of weeks. He's scoring really well, but I think Goldie's the man now. He's back in the middle and taking all the hit outs. So
Doesn't really make much sense though because Goldie's probably not going to be there too much longer.
And did you see Goldie's massive hanger up forward? He took
Yeah,
a
I
screen.
did
he got
actually. Heard on the
he
radio.
got the nomination for mark.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, he's a
Mark of the
freak
Year nom.
up forward at the moment as well. So it's almost like Nick Larkey, if he goes down, Zeri's stocks go up because Goldie's going to go forward and Zeri's going to go back in number 1 ruck.
Because Cherry's out injured, I noticed last week he kind of had that same split as he was earlier, but the scoring was really poor. So I was wondering if it was just coming back from injury, it might hurt him a bit. But then he had
58% TOG in this game.
Yeah, and 37% CBAs looks here, so he's down heaps this week. Maybe he's sore after last week. I don't really know.
Well, yeah, because he was out for ages.
Yeah, maybe they're just easing him back into it. Hopefully
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think
case.
so, and I think he'll get that role heading towards the end of the season. Although, like you say, if Goldie keeps dominating, maybe it's going to be tough. But they pretty much have promised, they want to get a look at him before his contract. I think he's got a contract year this year. So
yeah, well, the Saints were hot on him last year. They ended up. There's another man I'm going to bring up because Ron Marshall left the ground in the last quarter with a really sore shoulder, came back really heavily taped. So Tom Campbell's been slaying the VFL the last 2 weeks. He had 50 hit-outs. In fairness, he was their VFL side playing North Melbourne VFL side.
Tom Campbell's been doing that for probably like 8 years in VFL.
Well, North Melbourne had Ruckman in the VFL. It was like a call-up. So they slayed up some poor bloke who's been playing like VFAs for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, shit.
And then had 50 hit-outs. He's got back-to-back tons in the VFL. So he could get a game this week. I don't know if anyone's got ruck depth or they've got maybe... need someone just to cover a bench. He could be an option. Hunter Clark's also one to keep an eye on the next few weeks, and
definitely.
he will affect
like
everyone's
back
role.
after the bye because you got the round 12, don't they? So,
this week they got the bye.
Yeah, so he could. It's not so much like I'm hot on him for fantasy, but you also got to watch how he affects like Sinclair. And whether he's going to play halfback or he's going to play midfield, because he did split some midfield time in the preseason, and it was like everyone in my head, like a lot of people must be doing like, oh yeah, Hunter Clark defender, but I'm like Hunter Clark could also be a midfielder. It's a weird mix because he's sort of at that breakout point in his career.
Yeah, especially if he'll have a few weeks still without Steele, won't he?
Yeah,
so they should.
He's a bit of a similar player, so do they put him in the midfield? Like,
interesting. All right, we'll move on. We've just hit the hour mark, boys, so we'll try to power through the last few. But I looked at the Collingwood versus Carlton game. Just a few players of note. John Noble, like he always pops up every few weeks, I reckon. Had 97 points. Solid game of halfback. The thing is, though, he's averaging 83 from his last 3. And this week he was just kind of like allowed to play on his own terms, really, just kind of running through the middle and just delivering it to the Collingwood forwards. So, yeah, just one to watch, I think. Up and down, worth owning to have like as one of your last defenders or even a bench option. But yeah, he can put up some good scores here and there. So you're looking at me funny, Dossie. You don't agree? Or
No, he's had a ripping couple of weeks.
Yeah, good. Josh Dacos is another one, 96 points. He's another one that's super up and down. He was on the wing this week, like he usually is, really, but just found a lot of space in this game. Took 10 marks, so yeah, just popping into holes and they were chipping over to him. The quality of Carlton wingers weren't great. Like, and you look at O'Brien, Cottrell, Fisher, Nunes. They're the type he's playing on. Like, he can kind of get away from those. I think he's almost a class above those kind of players. If they're
can he go to another level though? Because I reckon my ceiling for Josh, the Josh Dacos variety was. I thought he could go 90 plus as a wing, but maybe it's just the game plan. Because we saw Poulter last year have a couple of nice scores on a wing. It doesn't seem like they're using their wings as attacking as they have been.
Yeah,
they're all up the corridor, aren't they? They go straight down the guts.
In terms of his potential, he is definitely got that 90 plus average, like as a player. It's just whether the game plan allows.
It's game plan dependent for sure.
Yeah. Still Sideboard and put up a fieldable score this week, 91 points. He was split between forward and the wing this week, so he kicked 2 goals. It's good for coaches that want him to keep forward status, but does he even play again next year? Do you reckon this is the end of Still Sideboard this season?
Oh, no. He'll go.
What is he? Is he 30?
He's
31?
He's only 30.
He was a very quiet start, and then Collingwood piled on a heap of goals. And when they were hot, he was really hot. Like, he was one of the main sort of ones to get him up and
real
going.
Momentum player.
And I think Steele back in the day was that man. He's just been getting aging. So it was good to see Steele come back. The old Steele that we sort of saw.
Yeah, he seems to have been struggling a bit.
He was on our wire.
Really? Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Dossie picked him up.
Oh, yeah, there you go. On your Dossie. We'll just talk about the Darcy Cameron, Mason Cox split. So this week was pretty obvious that Darcy Cameron was the number one ruck. Mason Cox was up forward. So there was 19 CBAs to Darcy Cameron to 7 to Mason Cox. So, Dossie, you had a bit of a theory on that last week. You thought maybe they wanted the bigger body against Darcy, and then this week they didn't.
Well, because last week they started Cox in the ruck and it was looking like he was going to play, he played the whole first quarter and was rucking predominantly.
Well, the big thing, everyone was concerned that Mason Cox was just going to take over the one ruck and Darcy Cameron goes back up forward. So,
but
didn't look like the case this week.
I think, and Cox, was he providing much up forward? I didn't even see, was he all right?
Yeah, he did actually. He was all right up forward. Yeah, he kicked a goal, a pretty crucial goal pretty late, I think. So, yeah, he was all right. And, pretty big grab as well. Adam Saad, you talked about him last week, Dos. Had 83 points. He's and it's basically the exact same as last week. He's a good player. It's just questions.
I just said with Zach Williams out, I thought he could benefit.
Yeah. Well, I guess McKay's and my counter argument was that he just doesn't have that ceiling, and so he had 83 points again, but he just doesn't go big. But he's super consistent, so he's worth owning as your D3 type thing, maybe even D2 depending on how deep you roll. But just not sure about how high he can go each week. And the last one, Dossie.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Talk to me.
We've talked about TikTok a bit tonight. So I put out a Paddy Dow highlight clip. Tribute with our song in the background that we recorded a couple of years ago. So if you haven't heard that one out, just type in Paddy Dow song on YouTube and have a listen to that one. But look, 72 points he had, 15 CBAs. But low time on ground too, 65%. So I worked it out today. I think it was 0.91 points per minute. I think it was, or 94 points per minute. So almost 1 point per minute in his game. It wasn't awful. Like he did.
It wasn't. Come on, mate.
No, sorry.
Beautiful.
When I did the highlights reel, I had to clip a few just to kind of the few wayward disposals, just to make sure it looked a little bit better.
Do the right thing. Yep.
So he came back in, but the Blues also lost. So a few people on Twitter have been saying he's the reason why they lost.
Get stuffed.
They don't
get stuffed.
So
I mean, but you look at it, and he played to his strengths, I think, as well. And you said, I mean, his tackling was a really nice thing to see.
Absolutely. If you in going through that highlight scene, he's laid some awesome tackles.
Which was probably something that he hadn't done too much in his previous appearances. But I think he played to his strength. He got heaps of clearances, centre clearances, which is what his specialty is as well, just getting it out of the midfield.
Yeah.
And how long's Kennedy out for, though? Is he out for a bit?
I was trying to think which player was out, and I could not remember.
Kennedy, so that's the big one. It's just watching whether he's gonna come back in. I actually didn't know he was out, and then picked him up off the waiver and put him on field for a tribute. 72 points, low tog. You gotta love that.
You do, but not sure about the longevity of it. That's all.
Well, what I was saying, I think we had a chat to our good friend of the show, and I was saying it, I think, as well at the footy, but Simo of the show writes the beautiful articles on the site. And I think he was talking about one player going to my beautiful West Coast. I would love that. I would love that duo over there, because I think is he out of contract this year? I
think he might be. Yeah, there's talk of his move at the end of the season. A few contract talks, but anyways, that's all the players from that game. I'm glad we didn't spend half an hour on Paddy Dow. Then I reckon that's a record for you, Dossie. But anyways, we'll move on to the next game now. Checkers, Port Adelaide versus Essendon. So last night, Dossie and I were leaving Adelaide Oval, and we were walking past the Malcolm Blight statue, I think it was.
The famous Malcolm Blight statue.
And we saw you doing a few interviews back there. So what's to go there?
We do that. We're just experimenting. When we went to Melbourne for round one, did all 5 games in 5 days, and sports bet, sit outside the ground after every MCG game, do interviews. Points bet, sit outside the ground, do interviews. There's bloody 14 TikTokers. You do a lap of the MCG and you'll get stopped for about 15 interviews. It's crazy. Jeez. And I'm like, no one in Adelaide does this. I go to Adelaide Oval and I never see it. Yep. So I was like, there's a market, and
geez, maybe we should start doing that.
Yeah, you guys come down. I don't know if you guys. It's another podcast for the Project podcast. They do a bit of walk and talk outside the ground as well. So there's a few starting up, and it's a good sort of spot. The Malcolm Blight statue is sort of like the divert sort of range where people leave the ground.
Certainly had people lining up there.
Yeah, so we stood behind you for a while. We waved to you a couple of times.
I had no idea what was going on. It was raining. It was raining for a start, and it was a Sunday arvo. Normally, when you're doing those sort of things, you're really looking for piss blokes just to say really dumb stuff, and all I was getting was a lot of kids going, "Oh, I know you from TikTok," and I was like, "Man, say something funny." Like,
I think you pulled out a funny line about Dick's. Big Dicks.
This guy was crying. This made this kid cry just talking about big dicks, about Charlie Dixon coming back.
Anyway, let's get into the game. Dossie, it's on you, mate.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
we were all at that game, so it was,
we can actually comment.
I actually wanted to go through a little backstory first. I saw my hero Mason Redman early in the day, and he didn't even play. I was really looking forward to him playing because he was in Adelaide. So I saw him at the cafe. You know, they say don't meet your heroes, but I didn't actually. I was too shy. I was too shy to go up to him.
They both got the bye, so all the SA boys like Sammy Draper's here for another week and a half, and Redman would be here for a week and a half.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Hit up one of them for the podcast. Yeah,
cool. Oh yeah, Meso. But anyway, he was there. It was great to see him in person. I had a little fanboy moment. But we'll talk about some players that did play, and Archie Perkins is probably the big one from this game that we can talk about. 82 points, but we were talking about how we wanted. Well, I think I was talking about how I wanted him. You were the main driver. Yeah, I was like, why isn't this guy playing more inside midfield? You know, you've got you're struggling, you're not doing too well on the ladder. Why not give him a crack in there? You've given every man and his dog a crack in there apart from him, and he got the most centre bounces for Essendon this week.
That's awesome. As an owner, I'm so happy with that.
He's got to be up there if he's on your waiver as a pickup.
And surely, the Bombers are done. Like, surely this continues. Like, they just give him a bit of a crack for the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess you look at the people that sort of didn't benefit as well. And I think Caldwell was kind of out of the rotations there.
McGrath.
You've got to obviously think that they've still got Stringer to come back in eventually, and he's the guy that they like in there. So who knows? But I think he'll get at least some going forward.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, McGrath, if you're a McGrath owner, I know he's too good for the podcast, but potentially some defensive status would be very handy for him because he's
been talking about it all year.
Just irrelevant as a mid.
Doesn't happen.
Not irrelevant, but he's just disappointing as a midfielder.
He's a jag as a mid. Yeah.
I got to say though, I at the game and hearing him off field and stuff, I bloody love his leadership and stuff, and the way he was one of the only people that would, when somebody got knocked down, he'd go and like remonstrate. He's just next captain. Sammy Durham, I'm a big fan of him too.
You love Durham.
I do, and I heard a few people talking about him too. 83 points in this game, so finally getting some fieldable scores. He's not generally been up there for fantasy, but for now it's just a tip of the cap, but I do like him long term. Did you like his game on the weekend?
Yeah, so my other mate from Marmalade was very hot on him. He's like, man, Sammy Durham, you want him in a few keeper leagues. Like, he's a man to watch at Essendon, and he's just like fantasy potential. Everything about him just screams fantasy. So he's got him in one of his keeper leagues, and he was watching him all day. He kept saying, "Oh, Durham, another touch." Like,
does the right things just all the time, gets in the right spots, and that hard at it, and sort of just not afraid to go back with the flight, that sort of thing. Just all the hustle points for him. Unfortunately, they don't count for fantasy, but
no.
Did all right. Nick Hind, also mentioned him as a bit of a buy low candidate. He was back to the podcast, so 89 points for him. And I think if you bought low, tip of the cap to Dossie.
But it feels like Redmond, Hind, kind of, when they're out, one goes big. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen there.
It was buy low last week. Now it's so high. And I just wanted to mention, we've talked about a few players that benefited big from getting huge tackle numbers. Jai Caldwell, 10 tackles, but only had 13 touches for his 80 points.
Yeah, we were looking at his fantasy score, I think, when we were at the game. We're like, oh, Caldwell's obviously going all right. We'd see him pop up every now and then, but yeah, it wasn't.
No, well, I think what we were saying, and it makes sense now looking at the tackle numbers, we were like, I haven't really seen Caldwell much.
That's what we were like.
And then we saw, he's on 50 at half or whatever, but obviously the tackles, because...
But I feel like as soon as we said we haven't seen him, he took a few more marks and got a few more touches and stuff like that. So, but yeah, he just wasn't enough, really.
And the player, I just wanted to mention a shout out to a player that I didn't goat this player. You did. Well, I have goated him.
I've goated a player before?
You did at the footy. You were like, Nick Goaten.
Oh, okay. Yes, here we go.
Martin was very impressive.
He was incredible.
How good is he?
That's going to be another tick in the book for the rising star that game.
He's undrafted in our league. We've got like I mentioned before, we do a punting challenge to decide the mid-season draft order. It's basically Nick Martin's the only player worth in there, so we're just punting for that basically this weekend. So wish me luck, people.
What, like punting on the horses or punting footies?
No, so you don't get too excited. If we were punting anything, there'd be torpedoes. But basically what we do is we all have a $10 bet. Whoever makes the most money and goes backwards is the draft order in the mid-season. So we don't do it by ladder order. We do it by punting. But the thing is, you can't keep this player. So you can take the player off the waivers. It's the one that we get each year, but you can't keep him next year. You've got to put him back in the poll. So.
Yeah, this year's still good enough.
Exactly.
You keep him on field.
Exactly.
Forward listed.
Yeah.
Dylan Shield. Did you guys notice the first quarter? He was on 35 points. He was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I have this thing in my head. I'm like, players when they get talked about in the media about potential trade, like we call it like an audition.
Yeah.
So Josh Dunkley tore up against Port the other week and against the Crows. He tore up massively against the Crows.
Yep.
And we were calling it the audition game because there was talk that he bought a house in Adelaide and it was like his audition game. And a couple of years ago there was another, I'm trying to think who it was, Zach Merritt was talked about a trade to Port and he tore up Port and everyone's like, it's the audition game. There's one from the Crows. Mitch Hinge playing for Brisbane, played for the Crows.
Yeah.
His only good fantasy score, he's got a ton against the Crows. So Dylan Shield recently in the media, they're all like, oh, he's going to go to Port next year and Port could be the team that could accommodate him. He had 35 in the first quarter.
Look at it.
He had like 8 touches. He was everywhere and all the Port fans on the hill were yelling out like, oh, he's coming to Port, he's coming to Port. Went missing. Scored 70
the thing is, like, a lot of those touches, like, I know it was actually no.
He was Dylan Shield of old. He was in the midfield. He was racking up.
But a lot of them weren't hitting targets and stuff like that. Though, like,
that's just Dylan Shield things.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, and it was dry in the first half as well. Like, it wasn't wet.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
I think the clean play, like Parrish started racking up when it got wet as well.
Parrish started racking up after he yelled at all his teammates.
Yeah, I saw that after the game.
Sorry, I didn't see it at the game. But
I missed it.
It's crazy.
Any more from this game, Dossie?
Just on the Port, like a lot of them were too good for the podcast. I think just to mention our guy Connor Rosie, even though he's too good now, but 113 points and great to see him playing midfield. So I think that was just good to see. And then the other player, just a fair, what do we call it? We're a fan of him. He's a friend of the show.
Oh, yeah,
Trent Dumont.
Yeah.
Getting 75 points. He's been on this podcast. We had to let him know.
He's been working hard the last few weeks.
I thought he popped an Achilles late, though, but I think it was just
his shoe came off. Yeah,
is that what happened?
Yeah, I was worried it was a knee because he's had a knee complaint in the past, and he was really holding the leg. I was like,
he missed a heap of last season because of a calf as well. I think, so.
And I was like looking. I was like, oh no! But then I think, like you said, he just put the shoe back on and
on your frog, found a home.
Missed across the face. But
anyways, that's the round rewind done for another week. If you enjoy the depth of research we do each week, please consider signing up as a member. We'll give you our weekly CBA analysis, kick-in analysis, our scores for and against data, our weekly projections, the breakout tracker, and much, much more. You also get access to the Pod, which is Dossie's other show. If you're keen on signing up, there's a link in the description below. But each week we read out 10 gold members. Checkers, can you see those names there? Do you want to read them out? Sure. As our guest, would you like to read out our 10 gold members this week?
Ryan Scully, number 1. Andrew Kenny, Steve Canton, Craig McKay, Jason Beck, Peter Stone, Shane Cargill, Scott Waddington, Doug Wicking, Matt Brown, and Peter Bell.
All right.
I from the side Peter Bell in there. We haven't talked about it for a while.
Where'd that come from?
I was just reading the names. There's Scully reminded me of Tom Scully. There's a Mackay in there. There's a few footy names in there.
Okay. Sweet. Peter Bell was your natural go-to.
Yeah, I was like Peter Bell.
All right. So there's a couple in there. So Andrew Kenny and Craig McKay in one of my keeper leagues. So shout out to those dudes. Make them pay up for the premium content. But I think they actually do it just to know what I'm thinking. So yeah. It's a strategic move for them really. So they can get inside my head.
I reckon a couple of our keeper league boys do that now, so you might miss out on some of your pickups this week. Check it out.
That's all right. My team's set. It's really not.
All right, let's get into the listener questions. A few questions this week. We'll just get that in there.
Trying to pick up Mitch Owens.
He's got the buy.
Yeah, still got to get him, mate.
By the time the buys are done, they'll have Hunter Clark back.
Yeah, might stash him away.
All right, let's get these rushed. All right, let's get into the listener questions. We'll power through these.
Old Chad Wingard.
All right, just keep it down for a sec while I do the intros. All right, first question of the night comes from Ninja Spoon. Watching the Port Essendon game, noticed a lot of Essendon kicks weren't to advantage. Any thoughts on streaming defenders versus Essendon going forward? Now, I actually had a look at our points for and against for player type up on our website. If you haven't checked that out, head to the points for and against section for the members. Essendon are the 4th easiest for general defenders to score against, so the medium-sized defenders. Middle of the road for key defenders, though. So, yeah, that's what I've noticed from those games. So, yeah, there's probably a few intercept marks to be taken if Essendon are a bit wayward there. So, so that's just something to think about. Does that make sense? Or have I done that the wrong way around? No, it should be Port.
Easiest for general defenders.
Wait, or should it be Port? Should I be looking at against? Yeah, no, sorry, no, against. So it should be forwards. Oh, I'm so confused right now. Let's just move on from that one.
I'm going to go check it out and see where you've messed up then.
Have a look at that. So, Port, no, that's Essendon going forward. So, yeah, defender scoring against. I've got it right. It's all good. Sorry about that one. Had a bit of confusion there.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah.
Michael Berry, DT, have a myriad of, is that how you say that? Myriad of mediocre defenders that have some stage showed promise. Maynard, Will Powell, Campbell, Bramble, Justin McInerney. Who do I free agent? Who do I trade? And who do I hold? Maybe just a word or two on each. For Maynard, because I'm an owner there, I've just noted when Magin's gone down and then all their key defenders have gone down, he gets a few defensive roles week in, week out. Which is I've lost kind of faith a little bit for this season, but I don't mind him maybe for next year. Not really sure there. You have an opinion on Maynard there, Checkers?
Out of all those names, he's probably, he's got the most potential out of all those names. I like what he's done in the past.
Yeah.
He's not playing it this year. Like you just said, he's got a different role, but if he does get out of that lockdown role, he's got scoring potential.
But then Powell, I'm kind of off. Campbell, I think I'm still on Campbell. Like, just give his second year, kind of give him another couple of years. So try to stash him away. Bramble's just too many mouths to feed at Hawthorne. He's playing on a wing at the moment, and he's probably best in defence last year. So it's just too many mouths in that defence for him to get a gig. Mcinerney's kind of not scoring that well, but looks like Dossie reckons he might keep defender status going forward. So he might be.
Well, he just got it. That's all. Like, he just got it in AFL.
Yeah, I find that so weird, but because I've been watching him pretty closely.
I reckon I had a fair bit of willpower stock, and I'm worried now.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was
had
saying.
a huge amount. Yeah.
Anyways, Dan K wants to know, Dan K101 wants to know thoughts on Brady Hough as a long-term stash. You're the West Coast man, Dossie. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd be stashing any young West Coast player because they're going to get all the minutes in the world over the next 5 years.
Well, there's your answer, Dan K. Stash away.
Any young talent there is going to get plenty of reps.
Bagels4 wants to know, is Jeremy Sharp worth holding on to? We kind of touched on that earlier on. We're hoping, now Fiorini's out, he should get a bit of an extended
Held
run.
on to him all year in my keeper league, so
Yeah, keep holding on to that one, definitely. At Russ2468 is asking, when are you going to get your Manscaped marbles onto the Craft Doctors? And my response to this, you know what the Craft Doctors is, Dossie?
Yeah, of course, mate. Big fan.
Good. Have you listened to it yet?
Yeah, I listened to, I think, the first.
Yeah,
the first official episode,
well,
and the really rough as guts draft one.
Well, my take is they need to start drinking actual craft beer before I'm going on that podcast, all right? Bolter XPA was the first one, then Young Henry's Newtowner. That's not craft beer. You can buy them at Dan Murphy's. Like, if you can buy beers at Dan Murphy's, it's not craft. So maybe what I'll do is I'll buy a few crafties, I'll ship them across the border, and then I might come on the show after that, if they'll have me, that is. I have been on the Draft Doctors before.
Do it, mate.
But yeah, I'm happy to send some across.
You're a beer snob, though.
So we can actually drink some proper craft beers. Not this Dan Murphy's bullshit.
You got to recommend a craft recommendation? Check
You work at the Highway's got some.
I work at the sports bar.
Some
My
out to work out,
recommendation is this fantastic beer. I don't know if you've heard of it, called West End Draft.
There are a few good crafties on tap at the Highway.
I wouldn't know whether that is because I just work in the TAB. I watch horse racing all day and just pour West End on the page.
Fair enough. Yeah. Now everyone knows where you work, so they'll be coming in to say good day. So
come get a West End.
Sorry about that. Anyway, at Russ2468. Oh, sorry, just did that one. At Munro Xavier, Oliver Florent, Ben Hobbs, or Robbie McComb worth a shout due to position changes? I think Hobbs is anyway. Like, just keep Hobbs because he's going to be a gun for the future. The other two I'm not very hot on. What about you boys?
Yeah, didn't mention Hobbs in the Essendon game. Was pretty impressive in that one as well. So scored about a 70.
Kept confusing him with Darcy Parish. They play a very similar type of footy.
And he got hot late too. It was sort of
hit the goal. Did he already hit the post? I can't remember. It was really wet and it was a tough angle. But yeah,
good player. But yeah, all those guys worth a shout. I'd say just Ben Hobbs. Florent, I didn't know was going to get the status. I saw he got defensive status as well.
Yeah.
But
that's another strange one.
I just don't think he's a scorer.
Nah, neither.
I think he's the occasional ton. But yeah, Hobbs is the big one for a stash there.
I put Florent back into the pool in a deep keeper league. Like, I'm talking 40 players. I put him back.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm not a fan. Richard Eliadis wants to know Sam Walsh. Oh, it's a trade. Sam Walsh and James Jordan for Callum Mills and Sam Draper. Which side of the trade are you on, Checkers?
Mills and Draper, because the ruckman's got to have more value than two mids, surely.
What do you reckon, Dossie?
Yeah, probably the same.
I like the Walsh.
Walsh is a gun, though.
Walsh is a gun, but so is Mills.
Guy.
Mills is underrated just because he plays for Sydney, I think.
Depends your window.
Nothing.
Yeah, that depends your window a bit. If you win now, it's obviously...
If you're in contention, go the first one. If you're not, go the second one, I reckon. At Ranger J87, Wingard came good after the bye rounds last year. Holding hope of a repeat this year, or dispose and let the seagulls feed? Dossie, you had a Wingard comment yesterday, didn't you, at the footy? Or am I imagining that?
No, as in I just mentioned it just before when we were off air. I said I've got Wingard in our keeper, and I'm like, do I drop him or not? I can't decide. But I picked him up for that reason. I think he generally comes good at some point.
Can't see him getting the midfield role that he gets though when he comes good. Like he's just like Sam Mitchell just. But he's got a really unusual coaching style for fantasy punters.
Mitchell was his midfield coach last year when he was the one pushing for him to play in the guts. So
but he hasn't played him there.
Yeah, he's getting like 30 odd %, so it's not terrible. But yeah,
Chad Wingard sometimes just looks disinterested for mine. So I don't know.
I think you missed a question. By the way,
get rid of the blonde tips, and then you are.
Did I?
Pies 2211.
Yes, sorry. Should I be worried as a Grundy owner? I picked up Cameron off the waivers, but worried once Grundy comes back, it will just affect both players and scores will be meh.
It's possible. We've seen, Peter Adams and Hickey. It's kind of similar situation, but Grundy's just going to be the primary ruck again, surely.
I think we mentioned this last week, but Cameron is out of contract at the end of this year, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, like this year, I reckon you might... Oh, I don't know. I think we saw him play with Cameron a fair bit last year with Cameron up forward, didn't we? Grundy?
What's this?
Yeah, Cameron's up forward all year.
Yeah, last year.
So
Yeah,
like, Cameron's been up forward since he came to Collingwood.
Yeah, so like it wouldn't be like it's not really going to affect him too much.
I think it's more if Cameron has played well, but I don't know if Cameron's played fantastic ruck game. It's just that fantasy-wise, everyone's really recognising he's put on good scores. Like he's not lighting up the world in the newspapers or anything about his ruck work.
Yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't be worried as a Grundy owner, and I'd just be hoping Cameron goes somewhere else at the end of the year to keep that scoring up if you're an owner of him. At Sven 85 wants to know, is Bruce going to be back to starting ruck next game? I'd say there's no guarantees with that, considering he only won 19 hit-outs against, is it Toby Conway in the Geelong side? He didn't even get on top of him in that game, which was a bit interesting. So I'm not sure what happened there, whether it was low tog or whatever. But
did he play in the twos?
Yeah, he played in the twos. Oh. So, yeah, so he was actually dropped for this game. I don't know if he was still sick from the week before and coming back, but he didn't dominate in this game. So
I think Stato mentioned it, like you saw how long it took Tim English to come back. Took him weeks and weeks to come back from that illness, I think it was. So maybe it's just one of those situations. We've seen some weird stuff with those the flu's hitting people pretty hard or other illnesses. So
yeah. And the other question he's got here is Tom Mitchell done with those awful 20 posse games? We talked about that a bit earlier as well. Like he had his highest centre bounce attendance for the year, but then on the news in Melbourne tonight, he said he's still not 100% sure what his role is going forward. So no, I don't know. I think he's turned a corner somehow. I get the feeling he has.
I do. Well, top number one for CBAs this week too for Hawks.
Yeah, well there you go. At Geostorming, our mid-season draft is coming up. Who goes first? And these available: Cherry, Martin, Akers, Curnow, Wilkie. It's Martin, isn't it?
Has to be Nick Martin.
Yeah. Almost there, boys. At Ant G25, pushing for a keeper flag. Would you trade young guns for older guns from rebuilding teams, e.g. Nick Dacos for a fit Zorko? If those other blokes, if so, which older blokes would you target?
I'd trade most young players except not Nick Dacos for the
same.
love of God.
Definitely not Nick Dacos.
We spoke about a couple before, like Brad Hill, probably like one that could. Yeah. We're trying to think of people who are probably like 28, 29.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, if you're trading for older players and it comes to the end of the year where your draft finals are on, what happens if those older players are the sort that get rested?
Yeah.
Like Paddy Dangerfield always due for a rest come finals time.
Just don't trade Dacos.
I'd not necessarily just go for old guys. I'd go for like players that don't have the sexy name as well. Like honestly, like a Zach Jones, someone who could go like on a run and just get you like be really good for a winning premiership winning team. But nobody's going to be like, I can't trade Zach Jones. Like,
again, like don't trade Dacos for him. But even people like Buddy Franklin, who can like just put up big scores like that you can get super cheap. Like people who want to trade him out because of his age. Look at a dude like who could have a retirement game in round 23, like a Shannon Hearn, and just don't pay anything for him. Just try and get some. You would get some of those old guys that people would be starting to panic now. They're not going to get anything for these guys that are probably going to retire at the end of the year. You'd be able to get some of those so cheap, but don't trade Dacos for any of them. Just give away a Brady Hough or something like that. Anyway, last question from a guy called Kays. Wants to know, is Jake Lloyd back to the podcast? He's got two questions here. It's the first one. Jake Lloyd scored 81 on the weekend, and I think he's averaging the same as Jaden Short over the past 4 weeks. So I don't know if he's B2P, then I think there's quite a few boys back to B2P. The thing with Lloyd...
And he's versing, like I said, he's up against Melbourne. He's probably going to go 110 this week.
Lloyd needs junk time. He's played 2 games where he hasn't been able to get it because it's been tightly contested or they've been coming from behind. So just let him get on top of a few teams and get a bit of junk time.
Didn't have Blakey this week, though, so you would have thought a bigger score.
Well, they got more kick-ins, but just like I said, like no junk time. That's what he needs to score well. Where are all the Darcy Cameron doubters now after his second question? Well,
I'll be doubting when Grundy comes back.
Well, this question, like this goes back to last week where Kays tweeted out that his reasoning that to not be worried about Mason Cox is because Mason Cox doesn't win hit-outs had nothing to do about the ruck split. So if Kays could articulate his argument well, he'd be rightful to have a bit of a dig right now. But seeing though that wasn't the argument he made, I don't think he can make that argument right now.
There was just one final thing before we wrap up as well. Trudge Watch.
Oh, we forgot about Trudge Watch last week.
Back, we need the theme song. I don't know if you know about this, Checkers, but we try and do it weekly. Each week we look at our favourite VFL player who should be coming up in the mid-season draft. He has nominated, and that's Joel Trudgeon, and we call it Trudge Watch. had his equal season high amount of disposals this week, probably thanks to Paddy Dow out of the Carlton VFL side. 27 disposals, 4 marks, 8 tackles. What did he score? Hef, have you got the numbers there?
No, I don't have a clue.
Oh,
I'm not
in the 90s.
I'm not on the Trudge Watch. Sorry,
He was the leading disposal winner for Carlton.
I'm
The
trying
Trudge.
to waste less time on this podcast. That's all. But,
Honour the Trudge.
anyways, we'll have to wrap it up there. So thank you very much, Checkers, for coming on this week. Where can our listeners find your content?
TikTok, Instagram, Marmalade Oz is what we're running under at the moment. So that's
Marmalade underscore Oz.
underscores. Yeah, that's the Torp stuff. So
If
Get
you
around
love
it.
big,
or if you want to
juicy
get an
talks.
interview outside Adelaide Oval, I can't believe these guys didn't stop to have a chat. So
Well, we literally said check, and then we were like, "Oh, we're gonna look like these fanboys."
Yeah.
Like, there was all these people waiting.
There's all these 14-year-olds
just
Oh,
push your
like-
way in. The best ones are blokes who just push their way in blind, drunk, and just scream in your face and then walk off.
I think Dossie was too hungover for that, so it might not
Yeah,
work,
didn't
but,
want to be on camera.
Yeah. But anyways, check out our stuff on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Also at Keeper League Pod. Support us by supporting our sponsors. Get around Manscaped. Use Keeper20 at manscaped.com. Get 20% off and free shipping worldwide with that one. And if you want to support the podcast, please consider signing up as a member and getting access to all of our bonus content. Anyways, that's the Keeper League for another week. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Checkers, again, and goodbye.
See you.
See ya.
Done. It's a cheeky 90-minute pod there. I'm the time Nazi. Checkers.
Paddy Dow.
Anyways, thank you, people. Kill the stream.